Watching the game last night and watching what the Lions did to the Ravens made me wonder, where did the Ravens defense go? Because it used to be the Ravens had a great defense. They always had a great defense and opportunistic defense. They forced turnovers. They got sacks, and they led with their defense. Now they're an offensive-minded team, which is fine unless the offense you're facing is better than your offense. And the Lions' offense last night was that. When you have 2 drives over 95 yards, you're sending a real loud message to the other team. You can't stop us. You could only hope to contain us. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs each scored 2 rushing touchdowns. They rushed for 224 yards. That's the most a Ravens defense has allowed since 2017. The Lions, the first team to have 2 touchdown drives of 95 or more yards in the same game since 2021. That's one of those, that's old school. That's not flashy. That's not tricky. That's just, hey, we're going to run. We're going to run over there. Montgomery's going to run over there. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to run there. That's when you take a team's heart away. And then you couple that with 7 sacks. And then you have the punch-out of Derrick Henry and the Lions with a huge win. And then the Ravens have to go to Kansas City next weekend. One of those teams is going to be 1-3. But the Lions, everything, as far as, they're coordinators, they're not the same team, and, they got blown out when they played the Packers, absolutely. But what we've seen is Dan Campbell gives the presence of this gruff guy, but he calls a good game. Because I put this on Dan Campbell with his ability to handle the offense. And you saw that last night. Now, they're still going to go for it on 4th down. They'll have a couple of trick plays in there. But this was just, and Aiden Hutchinson is back, in case you didn't know. But, you had the big play, and that was Derrick Henry's fumble, and it sounded like this.
Jackson hands it to Henry.
Balls out. Picked up by the Lions. They've got it inside the 20-yard line. DJ Reed with the football in his hands. The Lions stripped it away from Derrick Henry. What a big turn of events, and the Lions have got it now.
And it's the punch-out. That's, and it started with Peanut Tillman with the Bears. I think he's the godfather of the punch-out. But here's 3 fumbles with Derrick Henry, and 2 of those fumbles have cost them dearly, cost them the game. Here's Derrick Henry on his fumbling issues.
Crazy right now. 3 games straight. That happened in my career. Straight fumbles in critical moments. Ain't a good feeling. I apologize to SWAT Nation, and I'm just gonna keep working and get this fixed.
Yeah, you just don't expect that. And I always go back to Tiki Barber when he had his fumbling issues with the Giants and nearly cost him his job. And then he learned how to hold the ball differently. And he ran almost like Forrest Gump with his arms up really high, but he wasn't fumbling anymore and has had a borderline Hall of Fame career because of that. But with Derrick Henry and the punch-outs, and this is, if you can't tackle him, then go for the ball. I certainly understand that. I wouldn't want to tackle him. But if you can go for that punch out, and plus these defensive players are allowed to hit the opposition. Like you can punch somebody in the arm. I mean, there's no rules against that. And if you go back to, I don't know if it was Hard Knocks, and Seton probably can give you better information on it. I didn't see it, but Seton told me about it when Aaron Rodgers was mad at Max Crosby because Max Crosby on every play was hitting Aaron Rodgers in his passing arm.
Yeah, I think it was Aaron Rodgers. It was definitely Max Crosby, though. And whoever the quarterback was, if it wasn't Aaron Rodgers, I apologize. But he every time Max Crosby even got near him, he punched him in his throwing arm, right in the shoulder. He'd punch him, and the quarterback is like, dude, stop, man. You know what you're doing. And he's like, Max Crosby's like, what? What? What do you mean? What do you mean? Every time he went by him, bang, just smashed him right in the throwing shoulder, right in the arm.
But you're allowed to do that. If you're a defensive player, I can wind up and say I'm going for the ball. I can try to punch you. And worst case scenario, I'm going to hit you in the arm. Yeah, Paulie.
All three of Derrick Henry's fumbles this season are off punchouts. And I went back and looked. He never has had more than 5 in a single season. So maybe it's not Derrick Henry. It's the new play for the defenders. I asked our stats people to look at this. From 2018 to 2023, there was an average of about 120 fumbles per year by NFL running backs. Last year, it jumped to 140. This year, it's on pace for 160.
Yeah.
So in the past 2 years, fumbles for running backs are up quite a bit.
All right, we'll come up with a poll question. Got our play of the day coming up as well. And phone number is 877-3DP-SHOW. Seton, what are we going to go with first hour of the program?
Well, let's see. Well, we have a random one here
Ooh.
that maybe I'll save for a second. But who's in better shape right now, the Ravens or the Chiefs?
It feels like we've seen the best that the Ravens are going to be. From the standpoint of offense, you lose to Buffalo, no shame in that. You lose to the Lions. The way you lost to the Lions would be really disconcerting because Ray Lewis isn't walking through the door. Terrell Suggs isn't walking through the door. Ed Reed is not walking through the door. You got to score a lot of points. Now, you do have the potential to do that because Lamar did have a good passing night. It's almost as if, and Troy Aikman said this on the broadcast. He's like, hey, I wouldn't rush Lamar Jackson. I would have as many defensive backs as possible because I don't want him to run. I can have him stay in the pocket. We can eventually get to him, and that's what they did last night. They had 7 sacks on him. It seems I don't think he's ever been sacked that many times, even close to that, because you would think he would be able to get away, but they kept him in the pocket. And then you have the secondaries like, we're going to bottle up their receivers. And it worked. Now, he did have a good passer rating and threw for 3 touchdowns. But what the Lions did was an interesting philosophy. But it still goes back to the Ravens' defense. The Chiefs have a good defense. Now, they don't have the offense that the Ravens have. But I do think once they get a couple of their wide receivers back, then we're going to see if Kansas City is real. And maybe Kansas City still has Tyreek Hill in play because I don't think the Dolphins are going anywhere. Yes, Todd.
I think the Ravens are in better shape only from a division standpoint. With Joe Burrow out, the Browns aren't anything, even though they snuck past the Packers. But Denver and the Raiders and Chiefs, granted, they're all 1-2. But just looking at the AFC North and AFC West, I'd be more comfortable as a Raven fan in the long run this year.
Yeah, that's a great point. If you buy into, is Denver going to be like they were last year? The Chargers, they got injuries. Najee Harris out for the season. So, yeah, I certainly understand putting divisional play in there. Nick Bosa's done for the year. Another injury for the 49ers. Wow, an ACL tear. And Najee Harris's ACL with the Chargers. Or Achilles. What else do we have, Seton?
Tier 1 of the NFC, Paul just sent this over. Tier 1 of the NFC, is that the Eagles alone or the Eagles and the Lions?
Well, I would put the Packers in there too. I mean, the Packers blew out the Lions. So, and granted, I know they lost to Cleveland, but if we're going recency bias, then I understand that. But Green Bay did beat Detroit head up. I would put 3 teams in there. I still think the Rams are in that top 5 in the NFC, but I would say, and I think the Eagles will look great. They needed heroic performance by Jalen Hurts and a blocked field goal. I would say Lions, Packers, Rams, Eagles. That'd be my top 4.